militarism is a very complex thing. It's not just spending too much money on the army. It's a way of destroying civil society. The Soviet Union in 1991 dissolved because of militarism. It spent more than its civilian economy could carry, so to speak. If you invest in the military, you get very little employment effect because it's high tech and you buy machinery and sophisticated technology for that. If you invest instead of health, culture, education, civil companies, new technological innovations, you get a booming effect of employment. More people will be working, more people will therefore consume, more people will therefore produce. The military economy is a parasite. It's a parasite on the civilian. And the only ones who benefit from it are those in the military-industrial complex, those who produce and export the weapons, so to speak, or rebuild countries after they have been ravaged. The civilian economy does not benefit from this. It's totally self-destructive economically. So my prediction is there will be a deep economic crisis in the European Union and in the US. And it'll take some time, a little time more in the future for people to see the connection between militarism, war, and their own inability to live a good life. They will say, well, that's wrong economic decisions. I would say, no, it's all the warfare we've done the last 40 years. So my prediction would be a move to the right in Europe, a move towards fast solutions. Getting so much dependent on weapons is like a drug addict or an alcoholist. How do I get out of it? Because I've now gotten so used to just send more weapons. As you probably know, because of Ukraine, the Western arsenals of weapons and ammunition have been depleted. We're not even able to run a war. I sometimes say jokingly, Vladimir Putin should invade NATO now. It has never been so weak, and it has never spent so much on the military. We're going towards something which is totally absurd theater. We've spent so much on NATO in 75 years, an organization that promised that it could make peace. And where we are today is in the most serious crisis since 1945, thanks to NATO's expansion. Hubris, the idea that we can do whatever we want. We can humiliate Russia. We can appoint China as a threat. We can do whatever we want because we have all this power. Now, that's how a drunkard talks. Well, the main trick people in the West do on their society and their citizens is the Russians are coming. Vladimir Putin is a bad man, an evil man. He did it out of the blue, what he did in Ukraine, not true. And when he's taken all of Ukraine, he will continue to the Baltic Republics or whatever. Here in Sweden, we heard the chief of defense, God help us all, a very foolish alarmist, I don't know what you call, calm hysteric, saying that Putin could take, we cannot exclude the possibility, that's blah, blah, blah. We cannot exclude the possibility that Putin will take a part of Sweden, southern Sweden, that's by the way where I'm sitting, or the island of Gotland. And, the propaganda was in both Finland and Sweden, we must join NATO now because Russia is moving in at some point in the future. You just heard Secretary of Defense Austin in Washington.
If Ukraine falls, I really believe that NATO will be in a fight with Russia.
NATO would have to fight Russia. Now, what lies under all this, which is total nonsense? Give me one argument that Russia would invade a NATO country. Which would it be? What would have happened? How would it take place? How would they be able to do it? How many soldiers and tanks and whatever would they need to have? Show me a scenario of how you believe that, let's say, Russia will take southern Sweden. They can't answer that question because what they give you a reasoning. They don't even know anymore how to make a threat analysis. I happen to know how to make a threat analysis. That's also in my article about why Russia is not a threat. Because if you do it seriously, one is this is not possible for Russia to do. And they know it because they have, at least before the Ukraine war started, they had 8% of the military expenditures of NATO. They are one country against 32. You know, this whole thing it should speak enough in and of itself, but it doesn't. And secondly, if you make a serious threat analysis, a country like Sweden is threatened, let's say, or challenged, or whatever the word would be, by many, many more things than external military aggression. We are threatened at the moment. Our future is threatened by environmental problems, by supply chains problems, with economic crisis problems, with the fact that we've cut off Russia problems. And so you can have a fourfold table. It's very simple. You have internal and external challenges there. For instance, internally in many countries, there's terrorism, there's separatism, there's this and that, which is a challenge to the future, a threat maybe for the existence of the country. And then you have military and non-military challenges, if you look at a 20, 30 years perspective. They take away all of these fourfold tables and say there's only one threat in the whole wide world, and that is Russia. Now, what do we risk by that? One, Russia has not come the last 75 years. It's the West who's invaded Russia historically, from Napoleon and onwards. Secondly, we risk to overlook by that stupid, that incompetent, that kakistocratic threat analysis that everything has to do with Russia coming. We risk to overlook very serious problems and not allocate money to very serious threats. If you look at a 20, 30 years horizon for, let's say, Western countries in the European Union or the United States, we're overlooking things because we're looking boom at one thing and we're not seeing the things that come up on the other side. And so I'm saying we're digging our own grave.